Hey guys, something a little bit different today. We've had 24 patches this year from the start of Season 7 until now, 8.1, the first patch of Season 8. I thought it'd be kind of cool to do like a meta rewind. Look at where the meta started, basically, how it changed over the season to end up where we are now. We're going to have to go all the way back to 6.24 and 7.1, the starting point of Season 7. This is what it's going to look like. We're going to go patch by patch and quickly explain what the roles were like. If you remember, in the mid lane, LeBlanc was a beast at that point. Her wave clear was awesome, so she could farm, she could push basically, and then roam afterwards, and she was a real issue. We also had Lux as well, just as Elementalist Lux, that awesome skin that came out, she was really strong, which is no real surprise there. In the jungle, we had Vi. Courage of the Colossus, the shield keystone, if you remember that, was overpowered at the time. Vi abused it proper hard, building full damage but not dying because of that shield. Also, Shyvana's mini rework came in around this time and made her crazy strong. AD carry started off with Twitch. His W and Q changes came and made him crazy good. Better wave clear, but also faster stealth in fights was a huge buff to his Q. That is kind of where his Season 7 dominance all started. Caitlyn was also there, able to push and control the lane really hard. In the top lane, if you remember, it was Yasuo with this frozen mallet tank build with a new fervor of battle. 65 free AD made him an absolute beast, even though he was building defense kind of sucked. Darius as well, ultimate top lane champion, encountered pretty much every pick of the time. It was very lane focused. It's kind of weird how much the game has changed when you look back and think about it like this, I guess. We're going to have to go a bit quicker though, so this doesn't turn into a 20-minute video. One patch down, about 23 more to go. 7.2 was the rise of lethality. Mid lane, we still had LeBlanc at the top, but Corki also came up with a crazy early to mid game at this point. Jungle, we had soon after the Rengar rework, crazy damage, but this is also where tank Rengar started to come in with Warrior, Cleaver, and like Deadman. Still killing you, but it was just really tanky. AD carry massively switched. Misfortune and Jin because of lethality, and it made their abilities do an absolute ton of damage. Top lane, we also had Jace with lethality buffs, who became really good, and Nautilus, who had really good base damage at that point, and also abused Courage of the Colossus, so he could trade really well in the lane phase. Support was the weirdest one. We had a Malzahar, which came over from Korea, if you remember that. It was kind of the ultimate fighting, damage, and a playmaking support, and was crazy overpowered at that point. Soraka was like the counter to Malz as best as we could get anyway. Ardent Sensor was just buffed as well, not to the overpowered state, but pretty good, and we were using Soraka against Malzahar. 7.3 saw Corki knock LeBlanc out of this with really high burst damage, just dominated mid lane, but we also saw a bit more of Talon with the lethality roaming over walls and stuff, kind of the roam heavy style of mid lane. Jungle was the first patch we saw Graves come up. It was a lethality burst Graves. It was kind of discovered really. You could cancel your ultimate knockback with your E still, and it's basically 100% one-shot people alongside Kha'Zix. AD carry was still Misfortune, but we also discovered Varus could have this lethality poke build with his Q. Charge it up, half health Qs was pretty fun if you're playing Varus, not against Varus though. Top lane, we had Quinn. It was the roaming lethality meta. She was one-shotting everybody with Duskblade. And also for Fiora, we actually figured out further stacking with her was crazy overpowered, so she was really good. Moving into 7.4, lethality was nerfed pretty hard. In the mid lane, we had like Ahri. She was back when you couldn't really go wrong picking this champion. She was always really good. And Twisted Fate as well, the roam god, would keep his crown actually for most of the season from this point. With the lethality changes, Twitch started to come up as an AD carry again, probably to the top spot, and then Misfortune was actually still really good at this point. In the top lane, Fiora, Fervor was so strong, and lethality was obviously falling down at this point. Darius, it was kind of like back to lane kingdom for him, which is why he was so good. Support, we had Blitzcrank, countered most AD carries and supports at the time because we're moving into kind of like scaling and sensor and stuff. Sona, we figured out that her W could apply sensor to everybody around her, and suddenly she was really good. In 7.5, we still had a lot of Ahri. We also had Anivia, which was starting to come back up as a kind of counter to a lot of mages and assassins at the time. In the jungle, we had Warwick. Swap from last patch, people were figuring him out a lot more, and this is when he actually became really good. But we also had a lot of Graves still. Twitch was still the best. Caitlyn was coming back up after the lethality changes. She was able to push and really take towers, which is kind of what we wanted at this point in the game. Fiora was still the best for top lane, and now with the Trinity Force build as well, this is kind of the patch we discovered that Trinity Force was really good on her. And we also had Renekton. People started playing more damage Renekton with Fervor. This was also where the first phase of Sensor meta came in. We had Lulu as the best one with scaling AD carries, but this was also how strong Redemption was at the time. And number 2 was Sona. Sensor and Redemption together was just crazy good. In the mid lane, for example, Fizz came up as like the best mid laner you can play. With the lethality nerfs, it made room for AP assassins, and people just basically started to play him more and to figure out he was really good. In the jungle, we had Shaco come up with this new build. build, Trinity Force, and Titanic Hydra. It was when mid-game Shaco was insane as a bruiser build, if you remember that. But we also had Ivan come back up. It was a complete shake-up, really. Redemption Abuse could solo carry, and this was when he was really good. AD carry was also really different. Lucian was the best at this point. There were lots of different buffs to him at the same time, which made him really, really good. But the Blade rework was actually the biggest thing and made him the best AD carry by a mile. This was when everybody played Lucian. 7.7 was a little bit different. LeBlanc actually came back because we discovered the Gunblade build, which came in, and it was so overpowered at this point. LeBlanc could 100% one-shot people from one item. In the jungle as well, Amumu had his mini rework. It came in with all that true damage, if you remember that, and was absolutely insane. He would kill everybody and be really tanky. He was getting a Cinderhulk into Leandries pretty much every single game. But we also had Kha'Zix starting to get his bruiser and lethality build. AD carry, we had Lucian, same thing, really good. And then Caitlyn as well, who was kind of a semi-counter to Lucian a little bit. Could push him in and control him a little bit in the lane phase. Top lane shook up a lot as well, actually. We had Renekton, who stomped the lane phase really hard, and Fizz. Tank Fizz, boys. This was when that came in. This was when he'd build the new Trinity and basically just pop off. We still had like Sona and Lulu for supports, but also Blitzcrank came back because he was really good with Lucian as like a proper kill lane, really. In 7.8, we really discovered the Mastery Fearless. If you remember that in the resolve tree, it would basically give you some Iron Magic resist and make you hard to kill when you jumped in and took some damage. Kassadin was the main one with this. Actually, it made him way harder to kill and kind of overpowered at the time. Talon was also very good versus mages, which was kind of the meta at the point. Well, both of these actually very good versus mages, which is why the mid lane meta was this. Top lane really revolved around like Darius, Renekton, and Fizz. It was kind of these tank builds, but they also did a lot of damage at the same time. Support, we had Lulu, but we also had Janna, really. The real protection supports started to come in now in this patch. This is where it all started properly with the sensor meta. It started at that point, but in 7.9, we had crit item buffs, which kind of shook a lot up as well. Mid lane was still the same. Kassadin, we also had Ziggs. The tank meta came in here, and he could poke past them. He was really high damage at the time as well, so he was really good. In the jungle, we had Sejuani for the first time. The tank rework came in. This is when they broke her with the insane amount of damage that she did, but she was also very hard to kill. Warwick as well was the best kind of mix of carry and tank jungler at the time. Yasuo also came back as like the best top laner you could play. Because crit was cheaper, it made Yasuo so strong. Everyone was playing him at this time. And also Fiora started to build double lifesteal with the new Death Stance that just literally was reworked around that time as well and made her really good. Support, we had Lulu. The sensor abuse had really started and the best champion with it at the time. It was crazy good. But also Thresh was really strong, shutting down Zyra and Lux that were kind of meta at the time with damage. Bond of Stone as well, the healing keystone, was discovered and really good. The next patch did shake up a little bit. Mid lane we had Syndra. This is where her skill button came in. Press R and people just died. That is where this point came up really. And then we had Kassadin still. In the jungle, Zac. Remember the tank rework when he was super strong? That was this patch, and when he was basically pickle ban and would just win games by himself. Kha'Zix was also really good with the bruiser build though. We were now back to crit champions massively for AD carry. So Caitlyn was really using sensor and the defensive supports. They could actually kill tanks, but they were really good. Also Twitch, for the exact same reasons, scale with the sensor. In the top lane, we had Riven, who had buffs to animation cancelling, double lifesteal, Death Dance, new Guardian Angel. It was basically perfect for her, and this is when she became really good. But we also still had Yasuo. The next patch is when Malzahar came in with his new rework for his ultimate. It changed to how it was right now. This is where it all started, unfortunately. Vel'Koz also had a crazy spike up. Poke was doing really well at this point in the game. Twitch was still really good for AD carries, but Xayah came back up. Crit and the Blade build were both very good. She was a new champion, so people were learning her still, but she was actually really strong. Support changed a little bit because we had Janna a lot more. We figured out that the way to stop people dying was to pick her and disengage versus champions like Thresh. Next patch, we still had Malzahar. We also had Orianna. The meta chilled out way more, which meant Orianna wasn't being punished in lane phase and was a really good teamfight pick. The jungle did shift to more like gank heavy with Elise and Jarvan just dumping on every lane 24/7. So that was our jungle meta. AD carries, we had Twitch and Caitlyn though. This was where Caitlyn started to get really strong again because lane was kind of a bit more important because she could scale really well as well. Support, we had Blitzcrank and Thresh. Jungle meta changed to gankers. So the supports for this patch actually swapped to playmakers to pick more fights when they came in, and we had way more action bot lane. That did change a little bit. Next patch in 7.13, we still had the same mid lane meta, actually, Malzahar and Orianna. In the jungle, we went back to kind of tanky stuff. Warwick came up to try and shut down these early gankers, and he was a really good carry jungle counter really, and that kind of shut down Elise and Jarvan a lot. AD carries changed a bit. Caitlyn was the AD carry queen here. This is when it turned up to another level for her and when she got really, really good. And Tristana, this was the start of crit AD carries becoming the best you could play. The next patch, 7.14, was when Caitlyn was murdered with the attack speed nerfs. Basically, mid lane we had Malzahar still. Kassadin can get ahead, go nuts with that Lich Bane build that he started running. Because Caitlyn was kind of shut out of the meta, we had Jhin come up with the lethality and crit build, but also Twitch, the Blade build, and Roam style as well. Top lane we had Jarvan. This was when we had the Cleaver, Ninja Tabi, Titanic Hydra, and Stoneplate build that was completely overpowered. Renekton was the other one using this as well. Support really shifted to center at this point. We had Janna and Soraka. Lane phase doesn't really matter as much after this patch, after the Caitlyn nerfs, and it was all about the sensor. That really carried on into 7.15, where lane phase stopped meaning anything pretty much at all. Twisted Fate was a really good mid-game pick at this point, and Kassadin had really good scaling as a mid laner, which is why that was our meta. In the jungle, we had Maokai. Tank junglers became seriously overpowered in this patch and just farm. They wait to become unkillable in teamfights but still do damage. That's why we had Maokai and Sejuani. As AD carries, that meant we just scaled. We swapped to Twitch and Sivir. Lane phase wasn't that important anymore, so we picked AD carries that could carry in teamfights. Support, we had Janna, Sensor Abuse at full force in this patch, and Taric as well started to get a bit more popular as a defensive option who was also really about teamfights. 7.16 didn't change for mid lane really at all. It was tank meta for real this patch though. Cho'Gath, Sejuani, Maokai. This is what the meta was every single game for junglers. Tristana became pretty much overpowered at this point. We also had Twitch. It was just scaling AD carries who were really good in teamfights basically. Riven and Gangplank came up to top lane though, because with tanks in the jungle, we moved to more like teamfight top lane picks for this patch. A lot of these patches don't change that much anymore because it was just sensor abuse, like controlling the game. But we had Talon, who was pretty good way to say like, I'm going to refuse to teamfight and let you build sensor. Let's just kill things over and over. The AD carry meta was the same. Tristana, Twitch, a bit more Vayne now at this point. Riven and Jarvan for top lane. It was just bruisers who could survive but output a good amount of damage still as well. It was the same stuff for support, except Rakan was coming up way more. His engage was something people were starting to finally learn how to use properly. 7.18 wasn't a big patch at all because it was Worlds patch. We're going to skip over that one because it was sensor abuse with the tank meta. Nothing really changed from 7.17. 7.19 though was interesting because it changed because of Worlds really. Mid lane Talon, the meta was really passive, which meant he could easily get ahead and actually use his lead, which was really good. In the jungle, we had Sejuani come up way more than before because everybody was playing her at Worlds and everybody got a good idea of how to play her. Rammus was also the ganking jungler basically, courage abusing as well with the extra shield, which was really good at the time. AD carry, we had Tristana and Vayne. Vayne changes came in here and they made her so much better. Support, we had Janna, but we also had Rakan a lot more. Another Worlds pick, used a ton, and his engage was so overpowered. When it was used properly, he could actually build center as well, plus engage was crazy. Patch 7.20, mid lane, we had the Azir rework. Started to dominate with him again. It was a lot easier to play and seriously good. This was the first patch Xin Zhao came up after his mini rework. He became stupidly overpowered almost instantly. It was kind of ridiculous. Singe was one of the new kids on the block for top lane though. Countered the sensor AD carry with the new grounding mechanic. Could just run at them and flip them basically. Nothing you can really do. Support, we had Soraka and Janna, sensor abuse to a whole new level. Basically, whoever had Soraka at this point would win the lane phase. It was ridiculous. The last patch of Season 7 was 7.21. In the mid lane, we had like Twisted Fate, Malzahar standard, but we also had Veigar after his rework. He was actually a viable pick again. In the jungle, Xin Zhao was really good, but Jarvan came back again as we moved into more gank-heavy junglers. Top lane, the only different thing was Urgot. The rework and buffs that completely overtuned him. This was the patch where he was kind of like the anti-bruiser tank at this point. I'll put some of them back up now so you can look and compare. You can also pause the video and look at the metas, but when we had the preseason, right, which honestly has not really had a meta the entire time. That is kind of the point anyway. We had new stuff like Ezreal, Misfortune, now Vayne is really good. We have Overhill and Relic Shield and stuff. Aggressive supports came back like Leona and Alistar, but now Janna is really good again. Top lane is filled with Klepto builds, Alawi, Nasus, even Yasuo after his buffs as well. Mid lane is probably the most similar, like a lot of Malzahar and Orianna, but more poke as well, like Xerath. Jungle, Shyvana has been a monster, Udyr as well, the farm style. Warwick is now super good as well as we're moving into 8.1. Thank you for watching the video. Hopefully you found this interesting. I think some people will, some people won't, that's fine. I want to take a look back, but anyway, for now, I will leave you with the robots.